Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Monday Lunchtime Digest for June 16, 2025. Happy Monday, Hayley.
Happy Monday, Micah.
All right, Hayley, what is going on in the world of mental health in Oklahoma and beyond?
So, in the world of Oklahoma, there's some good news. So, according to an article on KGOU, the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services is relaunching their Naxalone or Narcan vending machine program. And so, the vending machine program was ended last year. There was some criticism because the initial vending machine program cost the ODMH about $14 million over a 16-month period. And there are a variety of reasons for that. One, folks said that it was challenging to keep up with the demand. Folks said that they're being put in places where it doesn't necessarily need to be put. But the program has been relaunched and also revamped. And so now, instead of the over 40 vending machines that were put out, the ODMH is cutting it down to 20. And they are initially filling all of the vending machines with Naxalone and fentanyl testing strips. But after that, it's going to be up to community partners to fill those. And so the vending machines will be given for free to community partners. And so the placement of the vending machines is going off of hospital and overdose data for the state of Oklahoma. And so they're being placed in Oklahoma in areas where Oklahomans are experiencing higher rates of opioid related overdoses. And so the 20 vending machines are going out fully stocked, but then they're collaborating with community partners. So, for example, Shed the Stigma is one of those partners. And so, whenever a community partner is given one of those machines, which again is free for them and fully stocked, it'll be up to that community partner to then keep it stocked. However, though the community partners can use their own funding, they also will have access to the opioid settlement fund in order to fill those. So, it won't necessarily have to come from community partners' pockets. They can use that fund to fill them, but it will be those partners' responsibility to fill those. And so the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health Substance Abuse Services is hoping that this continues to help Oklahomans while cutting down the cost, because it is showing that these are effective. In fact, according to the CDC, Oklahoma is finally experiencing a decrease in opioid-related overdoses for the first time since 2019. And so we are showing that these kits, these interventions are helpful for Oklahomans. I understand that they are expensive, and so hopefully this will be a good way for Oklahomans to still have this vital resource while not burdening the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health Substance Abuse Services as much. As we know, they are experiencing a lot of budget shortfalls this year, and so programs are unfortunately taking a hit. But hopefully this will keep this program alive, and hopefully these community partners are able to collaborate with ODMH as well as work to get that funding to keep them filled.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I'm glad that they were able to find a way to try to make it, cost effective, that they were able to do that. So that is fantastic. That's exciting to see those vending machines come back.
Yes, very, very happy to hear that, and hopefully that continues to help Oklahoma stay alive.
Yeah, definitely. Well, a couple of things that I have. And so I know that you recently did your interview with Representative Mike Osborne in discussing him pulling Senate Bill 397 off of the agenda. And that was the bill that would extend the sunset for the Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health licensure. And not to go too much into it, because I think probably most people have heard the story by now, but long story short, University of Central Oklahoma had a program, and they had some students that, according to Representative Osborne, the Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health were not allowing them to sit for their licensure exam. And so they tried to get a hold of the Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health, according to him, and there was problems in getting a hold of them. And so to basically get their attention, he pulled off the Senate Bill 397 from the agenda so that it did not get voted on. Now, the Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health doesn't sunset until next year. So we have a whole nother legislative session that the bill can be put back up, and voted on again. I know you asked Representative Osborne where the communication breakdown was, and he wasn't sure where it was at. And if you want to read more about Hayley's interview with him, you can find the article in our article section at the website, counselinginstitute.org. But he said that there is no chance, zero chance, that it will not get voted on, and that it will not be approved, and that it will not pass, and that the Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health will continue to exist as an independent board. But you did ask him, okay, what if just per chance that it did not pass and it was no longer an independent board, what would happen? And he said that it would actually go, if that were to happen, which he says right now, it's impossible. But if it were to happen, then it would go underneath another board. And he mentioned one. What was the one that he mentioned that it might go underneath?
It was actually the Oklahoma Department of Management and Enterprise Services.
Right. So that's just a larger entity that he speculated that the board could be placed under if it no longer operated as an independent board. So our licensures would not cease to exist. We would not automatically not be able to practice in Oklahoma. It would just go underneath a different, larger entity. And I mentioned in the Monday Lunchtime Digest last week that is very common in other states. And I think the number was 21 other states that have that arrangement where they do not have independent licensure boards, where their board is underneath a larger entity. I have a article that I will be publishing here soon this week that will talk a little bit more about that. But in looking at that, kind of starting to explore the idea of, okay, worst case scenario, if Senate Bill 397 did not get passed. And so let's say, let's say it was passed by the legislature and went to the governor, and the governor vetoed it like he did the cosmetology board. And so it was up for a sunset. The governor vetoed it, and the Oklahoma legislature overturned his veto. And now they did with the funeral board. They overturned the veto for the funeral board, but the cosmetology board, did they not overturn the veto for that one?
No. So there was a lot of protests by cosmetology providers in the state of Oklahoma. And so what happened was the governor, the board, and lawmakers came up with a kind of a handshake deal to keep the board running for a while until they figure out where the board is going to go. But as of right now, the board is still sunsetting, but it's just maintaining activity until they can figure out what's next.
Okay, and so it may end up being one of those boards that loses its independence that goes underneath a larger entity, and they're trying to figure out where to go. And I apologize for my misstatement there. So the Oklahoma Funeral Board was one that the governor also vetoed, but that the legislature overturned his veto on that one. So they are remaining an independent board, to my understanding. All of this to say, there's a big push right now on eliminating the independence of boards and putting them under larger entities, because there's this thought that it's more cost effective, it's more efficient to do something like that. So again, going back to worst case scenario, if the governor vetoed the sunset bill for the Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health, what could we do? So of course, what we could do is contact our legislators and ask them to override his veto like they did during this last session with several of the things that he vetoed. They got together and they overrode his veto. Something else that is possible that can be done is a petition drive. And so a petition drive can be done to overturn a governor's veto. And so there was recently a bill, it was 1027, Senate Bill 1027, that went into effect just at the end of this legislative session that puts limits on petition drives. And so this changes the requirements that used to, you would have to get a certain number of signatures of registered voters. And then if you get those number of signatures, you also have to fulfill some other requirements. Then it would go on the ballot, and the state, citizens could vote on it on a state ballot question. That's what happened with legalizing medical marijuana. That's what happened with some other things. And then just this year, Senate Bill 1027 was passed and was signed by the governor, went into effect, that 10% of the signatures, this is according to a KOCO article, 10% of the signatures could only come from Oklahoma or Tulsa counties, and then 4% of the signatures would come from the other surrounding counties. So the idea with this would be that trying to spread out the signatures. So rather than some, political activists or whatever we want to call them, groups going to just these larger counties like Oklahoma and Tulsa and getting all their signatures from just a couple of larger counties, instead having to spread it out so that able to get it from more citizens throughout Oklahoma. So there was a lawsuit that has been recently filed. McVeigh, Crockerford, I believe is the name, in Drummond, saying that is against the Oklahoma Constitution. So I have not read the Oklahoma Constitution. That's on my to-do list. I'd like to read what that says, but they said that that's unconstitutional according to the Oklahoma Constitution. So we'll have to wait and kind of see what happens with that. But going back to worst case scenario, if the governor vetoes the bill, Senate Bill 397, and does not allow Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health to continue as an independent board, contact our legislators to see if they can overturn the veto, and also arrange a petition drive to try to get enough signatures to then put it on the state ballot. So I know that's a lot of stuff. Hayley, do you have any thoughts about all those things?
Well, I'm thinking especially about having to spread out the petition signatures across the state. That seems like a barrier for Oklahomans in general. Because for multiple reasons, like number one, some Senate bills or some bills in general might only affect a small portion of Oklahoma. So if you are, if you have to get a certain percentage of signatures from different counties, and maybe this bill would only affect rural Western Oklahoma, or it really would affect only those who live in the metro, it's going to be a lot harder to get signatures from other folks because maybe it's not as pertinent to them. Not that they shouldn't care, they might not care, but it's not as pertinent. And so I think that is an unnecessary barrier that takes away the powers of the Oklahoma individual. And so I do hope that is overturned, because that does not seem like it, whether or not it goes, the argument is true that it goes against the Oklahoma Constitution is one thing, but I think it does remove some of the agency that we Oklahomans have when it comes to making our voices heard with our Oklahoma legislators. So that's the biggest takeaway that I have from that.
Yeah, and also I believe it's 90 days that the signatures have to be gathered. I could be wrong about that, but there's a certain time limit that you have to get all the signatures gathered. And that certainly puts a whole different layer of time constraint on that. Whenever not only do you have to get the signatures, but you have to get them from all over the state. So what do we have? 77 counties in Oklahoma. 77. So you have to get them from all 77 counties. So that's another barrier, as you're saying, to getting things on the ballot.
I think about Beaver County is the one that's at the very end of the Oklahoma Panhandle. I mean, I live in the metro, and that's a 6-hour drive from my house. And so having to go all across the state to get those signatures, I think that's really going to put a damper on a lot of grassroots movements in Oklahoma. Yeah. And so, yes, that concerns me, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So one other thing that I just kind of wanted to bring up a little bit, and so let me see if I can find my correct window here. I have like a whole bunch of windows open. But one of the things, it made me start thinking about numbers. And, we had the whole No Kings protest that happened here over the weekend. And so somehow I stumbled on the 3.5% rule. And so the 3.5% rule is something I never heard of before we started meeting. I asked you, and I know you hadn't heard of it before. But apparently a couple of researchers, Erica Chenoweth and Maria Stephan, in 2011, they wrote a book called Why Civil Resistance Works, the Strategic Logic of Nonviolent Conflict. And so they studied different social movements, and different social movements from around the world. Talked about People's Power Movement in the Philippines in 1986, Rose Revolution in Georgia in 2003, looked at all different types of social movements. And they came up with, just as a general rule, this 3.5% that if the population engages consistently in resistance, not in peaceful resistance, nonviolent resistance, 3.5% of the population do that consistently, then it leads to social change. And so just looking at our numbers, so in Oklahoma, there's estimated 4.2 million people in Oklahoma, so 3.5% would be roughly 147,000 people. And then in the United States, there's approximately 347 million people, so 3.5% would be around 12.15 million people. So I like having numbers. We in therapy we talked about SMART goals all the time: specific, measurable, attainable.
Right.
All those different things. So to have a number. So when we talk about petition drives, yes, we would have a number of signatures that we would need to get, and knowing what that number is, and I think being proactive. And so some of our associations, Oklahoma Counseling Association, the Oklahoma Social Work Association, Marriage and Family, Oklahoma Association for Mental Health Counselors, having some of those associations as they are networking with other groups and other people, that we could get those numbers easier. If we had to do a petition drive, it would be difficult, obviously, as we've already said, but would be able to get them easier. But then also just looking at social movements in general, just having a number to shoot for is helpful for me. So, Hayley, what are some of your thoughts about the 3.5% rule?
I think that it is great to kind of have that, like you said, that number to shoot for whenever it comes to, what actually does implement change. And we have seen where a lot of us banding together has led to significant change. I mean, I think about the therapist protests at the HIE. I think about the protests when it comes to saving Julius Jones from execution. Like, there have been many times in recent memory where in Oklahoma, social pressure has led our lawmakers and our leaders to respond. And so I think that we have to remember that we do have power as individuals, but we have greater power whenever we band together too. And so that's why it's very important for us to stay connected with our communities and to stay informed of the issues that are going on around us. So that way, one, things don't sneak up on us, but two, we can make change whenever change is necessary as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of numbers to think about today, and we will be putting out articles throughout the summer and fall and winter about the things that are coming up in Oklahoma legislation here this next legislative season, as well as other things as well. So stay tuned, keep an eye on that. Also, I know another thing before we kind of talk about our trainings, we're doing our Whimsical Wednesdays. So we have our next Whimsical Wednesday is going to be July 2nd.
Yes, Wednesday, July 2nd.
Yeah, from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And it will be at the Flashback Retro Pub. And so if you haven't been at the Flashback Retro Pub, it's really fun. They have all types of 80s styles games there. We will come up with a competition bracket, and the person that wins the tournament will then win free continuing education. So practice your Pac-Man, your Donkey Kong, your Dig Dug, whatever it is, your Galaga. I feel pretty confident in my Galaga play, so I will take on anyone on Galaga. But practice up, and we hope to see you there on July 2nd. It is a buy your own stuff event, so entry's pretty reasonable. I want to say it's like $5 at the door to play all the games you want, so it's very reasonable. But any of your drinks or anything is on you, but we would love for you to come out and relax with us and just have time hanging out with other mental health professionals in a fun and relaxed way.
And you don't have to worry, because playing me definitely just gets you a bye, because I am not going to beat anybody in any kind of games. I do not have the dexterity. I don't have the coordination. So just whenever you see my name on the bracket next to you, just know that you're automatically going to win. So you're at least not going to get last place, my friends.
All right. What trainings do we have coming up this weekend, Hayley?
So this is our last weekend for in-person trainings, and so very happy to welcome back Jamie Lavecchio. So Jamie comes to us from Weatherford. She is an LADC, and she'll be doing a 3-hour addictions counseling specific training on introduction to harm reduction. And so I know that we've talked a bit about, Nexalone, about fentanyl testing strips. She'll be talking about, I'm sure, those components, but also other ways that we can incorporate harm reduction into our practice. And so that will be this Saturday at the Halo Project from 9 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. And then in the afternoon, we're going to welcome our very own Terry Schuline for a 3-hour supervision training. And so she's going to be talking about how how supervisors can help their supervisees to find their treatment modality that best fits for them. And so that'll meet criteria for 3 hours of supervision. That will take place from 2 o'clock to 5:15 p.m. on Saturday. So two great trainings. If you are needing some live trainings before the end of the year, this is your last chance. Or if you just want to get together and see all your friends from OCI and beyond, again, this is your last chance to see us in person. Of course, we'll be starting our winter webinar series. Our fall webinar series in September. So we'll be back again here in a few weeks, but this is our last in-person event for the rest of the year. So we hope you can join us.
Yeah, we hope to see you this weekend for a couple of great trainings. And then, of course, we have all of our on-demand trainings as well. And so if you'd like to get your continuing education through the on-demand things that we offer, we have a lot of great things there too. And all of our trainings are approved by the different Oklahoma boards. So for LPCs, LMFTs, LADCs, and LCSWs. And then also, if you have a friend or colleague that's a counselor from another state, we are NBCC approved providers, and a lot of counseling boards accept continuing education from NBCC providers. So they would just need to check with theirs to make sure that those were accepted. But we could be a possibility for them as well.
Absolutely. And we just have a new training. I know that some folks by this time in June, maybe you're just missing one or two courses. We do have a new 1-hour training up as a brief introduction to psychedelic assisted therapy. And so that one will meet criteria for NBCC. It's a 1-hour training. And so you can find that on our on-demand catalog today.
Ah, fantastic. So Hayley, who won our drawing for this week for free continuing education?
So this week's winner is Diana Cesar Henshaw. Yay, Diana.
Hey, Diana, congratulations. So she has won free continuing education. So it's a free online course. Is that correct?
That is correct. So Diana, please send me an email or shoot me a text 405-440-3034. Email hello@edmondcounseling.com and let me know which course you would like. And so if you would like to be like Diana and you'd like to be entered into next week's drawing, you can do one of three or all three things. You can like this post, you can share this post, or you can answer today's question. Every time you do one of those three things, not only do you help us grow, help us be seen by others, but you also get entered into next week's drawing. And so that being said, tell us in the comments today, what is your favorite snow cone flavor? Micah, what's your favorite snow cone flavor?
My favorite snow cone flavor is watermelon. It's either watermelon or pina colada, but usually watermelon.
Ah, refreshing.
Yes. Hayley, how about you?
I like rainbow. I want all of them. I've always been a rainbow orderer. So yeah, I like the rainbow snow cones. And the snow cone stand by my house sells them for $2.25. So I like those 90s prices for the 90s taste. I'm here for
it. Nice. Yes. Nice. So we'd love to hear what your favorite snow cone flavor is. Or maybe you don't like snow cone flavors, and you can put that in there too. And if you're not a snow cone person, you will still be entered to win. But just post your comments in there, and every time that you post, like, or share, you will be entered into the drawing.
Yeah, so thank you so much for your support, everyone.
Yes, thanks everyone. And remember, anytime that you attend an online training, an in-person training, an on-demand training, you tell a friend or colleague about us, or you like or share a post, then you're helping to meet the mission of providing quality continuing education in Oklahoma and beyond. And we thank you guys so much for being a part of that. So everybody have a good week, and we will see you next week.
Take care.
All right. Bye, everyone.